Okay, cool. Okay. Let's see. I don't know if we decided this is your title or not yet, but your topic is game film talk, film, video, watching yourself on video.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that as your team thing?
I love watching video. I've done it for such a long time. And like in high school, I just think there's so many ways you can improve your game besides practicing than like anything better than going and watching yourself back, whether that be like practice or games.
So you watched film a lot in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Your coaches made you do that, or was it like you did it yourself, or what?
No, well, we did it on our own. We didn't have like assignments, but it was encouraged on our own, but we would do it like as a team. So in high school, in like district play, you would have like first round, second round, and you would go and you would play all your first round, and then you would go back and you would like switch. So like if one played at your home school, you would go and switch to their school. So you would go back and like look at the game that you did or that you played with that team, and then you would just go through point by point, like slowing it down, looking at rotations, who comes in and out. So that was more indoor though, but I feel
So
like
why did you feel like that helped you?
it's just like sometimes when you think you do like really good in a game and like you go back and you watch and you're like, dang, like I made a lot of mistakes or could have done this better. I just feel like you can be so observant in like the ways that you move and the calls that you make, and I just feel like anything that you do in a game, you can go back and watch yourself and look at if you're really doing those things right.
Yeah. Have you ever had the experience of feeling like you played bad and then watching the film and being like, that was actually pretty good?
Yeah, a lot. I'll like talk with my partner after, like whoever I'm playing with, and I'll be like, dang, like I played like crap that game. And I'll go back and I'll watch the film and I'll be like, okay, like it wasn't as bad as I told myself that it was.
So do you feel like we both equally experience like playing good, thinking we played good and then seeing that we played bad, and thinking that we played bad and seeing that we played good? You think that it's like equal?
Yeah, I think like there are some times where it could be like just opposite, but I feel like it's equally like if I think I play really good, then there's maybe a few games where like I actually did do good and I did the right things. There's always, more to improve on, but I feel like there's more of like I played bad, but here are things that I did good.
Because I feel like generally what happens, at least for me, is that I feel like I played pretty good. I remember the good moments, and then I go watch the film and I'm like, actually most of this is kind of like not that good. Mm-hmm. Most of this is kind of like I'm not really impressed by. Yeah. I rarely have the experience of like, I played like crap, and then being like, no, it was actually pretty good on film. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if like it's a personality thing or what it is where like some of us in games in the moment, like either we inflate either good moments or bad moments. Mm. Do you think that that's like personality, or do you think most people inflate more of the good or more of the bad? Like, what do you think?
I feel like more people inflate the good, and I feel like it depends on what kind of player you are. Like, if you're like this aggressive, going for everything, you're probably going to remember the good things that you did in that game. But if it's more like, play reserved or vanilla, then I feel like you'll remember more the bad that you did in that game and then not give enough credit for things that you probably did do good.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about it like that.
What do you think about like watching other people play? Like whether that be like pro, higher level, or like even your own teammates? Because that's like something that like I do as well in film. Like go and admire their teammates to see what they're doing, or go watch like AVP videos.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Well, for one, I've never had a team to be able to really do that with, to watch my teammates. But, I mean, watching video is basically, I feel like, how I learned a lot of the sport. I mean, like, a lot for me was just watching and, like, noticing patterns and seeing consistencies across high-level players and seeing like the way they move and the things that they do and the choices that they make. And we were just watching film, you know, the other week, right? And talking about how we were watching the FIVB and defensively, like they were really calm and balanced and weren't doing a ton of movement. And that's like a little bit different from what we look like sometimes. And so I think it's extremely valuable. For whatever reason, though, I guess my counter question to you is, do you have things that people that you don't watch because like it feels too different from like your game? Like there's like, do you get as much value out of watching like your teammates as you do of watching like pro men's?
That's interesting because like it's obviously men's. It's gonna be a lot more different. Like they're taller, bigger, faster, jump higher. They make all these crazy moves, you know, with the jump setting, the optioning, but I don't know. I think it's more like inspirational to watch them, and it's not something that maybe I would imply in my game. Like maybe I would watch someone similar to me, being a defender or a spot blocker. I would watch someone more similar to see if it's even beneficial for me to watch and then to learn from them. But I just think it's more reasonable to watch like women's, like the FIVB match that we watched, is that's like something you could really translate into like my own game, I guess.
So you feel like it's more beneficial to watch people that are similar-ish to you or like a better version of you or whatever it is?
Yeah, like watching those like AVP matches, FIVB, like those are those are games that I could probably watch and learn from and, you know, experiment in my own game with like the, you know, different defense setting, offense, literally anything.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I used to think about that a lot because we used to have this like cue sheet of different like cues that we would use, and I would attach video to all of them. And a lot of the video was college. It was like all different levels, but some of the video was men's. And then I realized like something happens to a lot of you guys, I feel like, when you're watching like film of men's film, which is like something in your brain kind of shuts off. Like you get like this block where you're like, you can't translate that to part of your game because like you always be like, oh, because of the physicality. They're like, oh, well, this is not realistic, like whatever. But it's like, I always viewed it as like watching men's a lot of the time seems way more beneficial because the moves are so exaggerated. Like because they're longer and taller, like you notice the movements more. It's the same movements that like the women are making.
Yeah.
Like when you think about like a step close or a block move, like it's the same. It's a lot of times mechanically it's very similar, but it's just like the men are maybe like covering more ground with their step or like pressing further on their block, but like it's the same move, but it's like easier to see.
Yeah.
So I actually felt like it's beneficial, but something, I don't know, do you feel like you have that thing where it's just kind of like, this is different, like this is not something that like I can do?
I don't know if it's like a block in front of me that's like, I'm never going to be able to do that. But I almost think of it like, I don't know, just like, like I said earlier, just like more inspirational. Like I feel like when I watch men's play, it's so exaggerated in what they do. I tell myself that I probably could be like some of those defenders, but like you said, some of the physicality stuff makes me think that I can't do that. But it's just more interesting to watch them compared to when we watch women play. Or like.
And when you're watching like really high level stuff, What exactly are you watching generally?
Me personally, as a defender, I'm watching how they move. Most of the time, they never make these big, exaggerated movements, whereas sometimes when I watch myself, playing in a game, I'm making all these big movements and wondering why I can't play defense. But when I watch them, I look at what they call and how the outcome is. Because most of the time they pick it up between the first side switch of who they're going to go at, where that person's going to go, and like where to serve them to get them to like make their play, basically.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's hard to like look at the right things on film.
Yeah.
Like you just watch the rallies or like you follow the ball.
Or it's like look at the good stuff, but don't look at, not saying the bad, but look at where you could improve on, I feel. It's taking me a while to really look at the right things, and obviously I can still learn how to watch film, but in high school I would literally just go through and just watch a full game without even really doing anything. I would just look at all the good kills I had or the great digs I had, but I wouldn't really look at like the bad set calls I made or the balls that I didn't get in defense, or even now, like you just looking at, the aces and the kills instead of looking at wrong movements, miscommunication.
Yeah.
I just think like many people look over the things that could probably help them win games than to, just look at the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different depending on what you're watching. Like, if you're watching yourself, like, I think you're, like, looking for the best things.
Yeah.
When you're watching somebody else that's on your level, I think you're watching for, like, all the bad things.
Yeah, and you probably overlook the good
that
they do.
No, for sure. You're like, oh, that's, like, not that, that's whatever.
Yeah.
And then when you're watching, like, a really high-level match, I feel like a lot of people just watch the plays, like the rallies.
The rallies, yeah.
Because sometimes I'll be, like, in the past, will have been, like, leading us through film, trying to look at something specific, and I can just tell people are just like watching the rally play.
Yeah.
When it's like, it's definitely a trained skill or a trained habit to be able to like look at not the ball.
Yeah.
Like look at the defender during the rally.
Or what the blocker does.
Right.
Because that's so beneficial. Like the defender sets up where they're at based on their blocker. So
Right.
if your blocker's not in position, then I feel like the whole play just gets thrown off.
Yeah. Yeah, looking at the right things is really hard. Like, not ball watching is a really, really tough skill. Yeah, definitely a developed skill, I think.
I don't know. Do you think like watching more film of other teams in the future will help us be more mentally prepared? Because we talk about all the time.
Like with scouting, you mean?
Yeah, basically. More like watching more film of other teams.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about scouting is like scouting takes time and it takes focus, and especially with what we do in beach, I'm not really sure. I haven't figured out how much of that should be our job as coaches and how much of it should be your job as players. Because in a perfect world, and the pairs change and the partnerships change, and it's really hard to like get clear data on people.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I think every time I'm able to scout a match, it tells me a ton about, because the reality is like most people have tendencies, and most people at our level have pretty clear tendencies. There's not a ton of people we play that are like hard to scout.
Yeah.
Most, shot charts are either like they're wrist away hitters or they're cross body hitters, and most people are cross body hitters.
Yeah.
And so like most people don't hit the wrist away cutty, and most people don't do certain things, and so when you learn that, you can just instantly plan your game around not defending a certain percentage of the court or whatever. And it's just like the margins you're able to like gain, the little percentages you're able to like increase, those add up a lot. Yeah. And you don't really know that if you don't scout, but it takes time and patience and diligence and watching the right things, you know?
I think it's definitely a skill to have, but I feel that most people might not want to put in that much work because it's a lot to watch film. Like, I find myself staying up past my bedtime watching film because, you know, that's something that I want to get better at, but it's definitely something that's really, I feel like personally, that's really hard to do.
Yeah, and it's hard to do well because you can put in the time watching film, but like, it's like, don't mistake activity for achievement kind of thing. It's like, a lot of times I can tell that we just watch the game.
Yeah. And
it's like, well, you need to watch their attacks. You need to watch what plays they run on defense. You need to watch where they serve, how they serve. You need to watch how they receive, who makes the calls, whatever. Like, you need to almost watch the match like 4 different times, looking at 4 different things. Yeah. You know?
It's a lot too, trying to do those specific things. And then with like our assignments that we do, depending on what it is, whether it's like, look at your offense, look at your defense, look at your serving, look at your, you know, no-goes or something like that. I feel like that's more discreet and clear for your personal game. But watching overall film, it's a lot to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's good. And you get way more efficient at it the more you do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you get way quicker at like understanding how to filter certain things in and out. Even just watching. Yeah. But having a good system goes a really, really long way. I also will say that I think that there is a ton of value. One of the coaches that I worked for sometimes would tell the team to just like watch the game and like just get a feel for like what they think is going to happen, just like their instincts.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's cool, it's actually good to like watch not with a specific focus and just have a feeling of like, what is this team like? What is this player like? Like what vibe do you get from them? What, you know, you get a sense of like, oh, this person like wants to be aggressive. Yeah. Or this person like, you know, you get like you like develop a little bit of an instinct for them, just by not focusing on any one specific thing. Yeah. You know, which that's really valuable too, I feel like.
But watching, just watching someone play, like if we, you know, get to a tournament and we get to watch the game before we play, I feel like going in with that kind of mindset is so beneficial when you like go in and play, just depending on, but then I feel like it depends on how that person plays game to game. Like, do you think it changes, like, depending on what team? Like,
kind of. I think you can kind of. I think we actually are pretty good at having a sense of, like, what type of player somebody is, even just by watching them for a little bit.
Or even, like, how they warm up.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of just tell a lot about somebody by just zooming out. Not really focusing on any one specific thing and just kind of like, what do they like? You know, I think it needs to be both because you definitely can't trust that alone. Yeah. Sometimes like taking a little bit of data is really objective and like kind of cuts through your feelings about what you're seeing. Yeah. Which that goes back to like, you know, your own game, right? Is like, that's the reason for going through film is like, not trusting your like emotional response to what you're seeing. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways, and there's people that are way better at it than all of us that are like their whole jobs are to scout and they have good systems and good charts and good like ways of filtering their own vision to like look for like high return tendencies and patterns and stuff like that.
But I feel like it's so much easier for some other sports. Like I think about maybe like football, for example. Like they go and like watch film. Even like here in college, they have, you know, meetings and film watching, but I feel like it's so much more discreet and clear with how they play. But we're such a small sport. There's only, you know, 4 people on a court compared to football where there's, you know, tons on a field, and they can go up, they have cameras up high, and they can go and tell them to make calls. But here in beach, there's so many other different factors that go into watching film. Like there's so many things that you could look at in one game.
Yeah, it's harder in some ways. It's easier in some ways. You know.
Yeah.
It's easier because there's less people in a way.
Yeah.
But, you know, in some ways it's harder because there's 5 different courts, there's different partnerships, those could change. It's kind of like, are you scouting individuals or are you scouting pairs? Mm-hmm. Like, even when you're watching yourself, it's kind of like, you know, there's so much variability to the game, like you're saying, that it is different for sure. I mean, when you like think about basketball, like a lot of people are running a similar-ish lineup most nights, and like they have their systems and their plays, and they have their shooters, and they have their, you know, like they have a lot of things that, and I don't know, but like, yeah, it's a whole team is consumed into like one court, you know. Scouting volleyball too is a way, I think, easier than scouting beach. I think it's
so much easier. Like, I mean, you'll have people that will rotate in and out, but you usually have that one or 2 star players, like whether that be your middle or your outside, you know, that are consistent, and there's, you know, more people on the court. You know? Yeah,
I genuinely feel like with indoor, because I used to scout a lot when I coach indoor, like do the scouting report every week, mm-hmm. and it's like, it's pretty simple in my opinion. It's like you said, who are their hitters, what do they do, where do they like, where do they serve? It's like, what rotations are they good, what rotations is trouble, what rotations do they have a weak block. Like, it's very systematic. Indoor is very systematized, and so most teams, they have their system, and it doesn't change a whole lot. Mm-mm. It's basically for the most part, it's system versus system, and it's, can we optimize our system a little bit more than you optimize yours? Can we like match up in ways that we have our front row outside that's high productive up with your 5-1 short setter, and just set the outside for 3 rotations and hit line. Mm-hmm. Like, can we do that and have success? Can we be in system and feed the middle? Like, it's pretty like systematic in a lot of ways.
I feel like the only time where it gets to where like a team, you know, will beat, you know, 25, you know, 15, 25, 20 is whether or not they can be in system. Yeah. You know, that's a lot about indoors, that when you're out of system, it's like put the ball in the court and play defense, kind of like us too. But I feel like for us, when we get out of system, it's try and make as much trouble, basically.
Yeah.
To then get it back and then side out. Where I feel as an indoor, when you're out of system, it's fairly simple to get your point back. You know, you could get a big stop block, or, I mean, keep playing defense. And there's a lot more rallies that go on. Yeah.
I mean, for sure. It's, I don't know. And I think the thing about beach that's harder to scout is that the beach game in general, like, people will go in and out of different strategies to a much higher degree than in other sports. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not going to say in all of the sports, but I think in indoor. Yeah. I mean, because it's so easy to make adjustments, like, and a lot of people won't maybe see this from the outside, but, you know, you could be attacking a certain direction, and then they can just rearrange their defense and take that away, and then you got to change again, and then they change, and it becomes like, there's a lot of changes. Like, it's very, like, mental, you know, mm-hmm. Which also makes it hard to scout, because when you look at a lot of indoor matches, like not a whole lot. You can watch, I'll watch 2-3 matches, and it's like not a whole lot changes. Maybe they'll change like which hitters they're feeding, like to be more productive. But that's not a whole lot of, you kind of just know. With beach, it's kind of like, and it depends on the pair. Some pairs are really good and they do the same thing every match and it works. Other pairs, it's like maybe they'll be swinging a lot one game or shooting a lot another or running from a certain location one time, or defensively especially, teams will change a lot. Offensively, a lot of teams like what they like, but defensively, it's like, are they playing straight up? Are they pulling a lot? Are they pulling the same direction? Do they always pull line? Do they always block line in transition? Do they run 3s and 4s? Are they effective at running 3s and 4s? Like, do they double up? Like, and that could change side switch to side switch, game to game. So one match really doesn't tell the story of a pair in the beach, I think,
But I find like when we were talking, I don't know if you said this at practice the other day, but trying a certain thing and sticking with it to try and get that data, whereas if you try a whole bunch of things, you're never going to know if it works. But when I'm watching myself in film and we do 1 or 2 certain things, you can get so much information back. But when I look at some games where it was interchangeable the whole time and there was never one specific thing that we did and stuck with, then I wonder if we could have won that game or it could have turned out differently.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like, I always think about it like, when like penalty kicks in soccer. So it never really made sense to me, this is going to be like a hot take, but it never really made sense to me how in penalty kicks you would try and like dive different ways. Like left or right or stay, like, because they are guessing, right?
Yeah.
But it's like most penalty kick situations, you really just need to get like one block, like one stop, right? And so it's like, to me, it's almost like, why would you not dive the same way every time? Because the chances of 5 penalty kicks going the opposite way you go every time seems low. Now, obviously, as a goalie, if you did that every single time, people would figure it out. Yeah. But, like, you know what I mean? When you mix up your strategy, there's a chance that you could be wrong every time.
Like, you'll never know.
Exactly. So when you translate that to beach, it's like, let's say you just decide to, like, have your blocker stay line the whole time. And as a defender, like, you're kind of like, for example, guessing cutty or guessing high line. You could guess wrong every time. But if you, for example, for a few points, guessed high line every single time, you probably pretty high likelihood that you're going to get at least one high line that's going to be hit during that time.
At least one. Like, they're going to mess up one time, or their shot caller is going to give them a wrong call, or they're just hitting what they like.
Exactly. So, like, and so you can't be so exaggerated with that idea, but the idea of, like, consistently trying something to where you can kind of, it makes you more attuned, I think, to learning about the other team's preferences and habits. Yeah. If you pull every single time, for example, you're going to learn a lot about a team. You're going to learn, can they and do they swing on an open net every time?
Because that's, like, so testable.
So testable, because a lot of teams, they'll hammer. Cool, now we know. A lot of teams, when it's perfect, and they'll try, but a lot of times they can't.
Or
they
tapes,
can't.
or
they
it's
tape,
like, or it goes out, or
goes
hit
out,
in the net.
Or they'll just shoot because, like, they're not confident enough to swing.
Yeah.
Can a lot of teams we played, like, do you think that they could beat us with hard-driven balls for 21 points?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? So if we're confident in our side-out game, then defensively there's a lot of opportunity, I feel like, to really try things. And that's, to tie that back to the scouting and the film, like, the consistency of attempting those things allows you to like process patterns way more clearly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there was a team that I played. There was a girl that loved Highline, and she, like, on a perfect ball, she could hammer, and that was something that she was good at. But it was like we let those hammers go, and we were picking up all these high line balls, and it was so much more clear the type of player that she was that we stuck with her and ended up, coming short in that game. But it was like sticking with your plan and, letting, one or two bangers go. It's like...
Exactly. It's it's not about getting everything, it's just about getting some things.
Yeah. That's the thing I've had to learn about watching film is sometimes you just have to give up something because you're not going to get every single ball that, may come your way.
Yeah. So what do you think about, obviously everyone doesn't think of film the same way. So as it relates to you kind of being the film person that's like making sure that people are watching their film on Huddle with these assignments that we help create, like, I guess, how do you observe people? Like, some people don't like to do it.
Yeah.
Some people like it, but they're not good at it. Like, what does the spread of like skill sets and perspectives look like from your end?
From my perspective of feedback that I've gotten, it's more of it's time consuming. Like you really have to set aside time to do it. Or it's, I like it, I know the benefits, and if I do it correctly, it could really help me, but it's not something that I'd like to do. So it's either I don't like it at all, or it's I know the benefits, I know what I could get out of it, but I just don't like it. Film is, I don't know. Just me personally, I like it a lot. I've always liked it. So it's interesting to hear that most people know that it's probably really good, but that it's just not something that they ever did, I guess.
Yeah.
Either in high school or, now, I guess.
How important do you think it is? How much more or less should we be doing, do you think?
I liked when we said, I think it was maybe an hour or two that day when we watched the FIBB match. Maybe like I know we all are so busy, and with, school, volleyball, traveling, it's a lot. So, I think you just learn so much from it that, maybe doing it at least one time a week, possibly, like.
Well, I'm not talking about like, so I'm saying like, not thinking about like logistics, like just like how important do you think it actually is? Like, where do you feel like it ranks in like the things? Do you feel like it's like the number 2 thing?
Probably not the number 2. Maybe like top 5, I think.
In what other things? Like for me, it's kind of like practicing and training.
That's like probably my number 1.
Seems like it's pretty high up there.
Yeah. That would probably be like my number 1 would be
actually doing the thing.
Yes, like practicing. Well, practice plan is probably number 1, and then I don't know. It's hard because there's only so much that we can do. So it's like it's more the question as how important do you want it to be? I feel like.
What is it? What do you mean by
that? How important is it to you? Like, some people may not benefit from watching film, or that's just not their style of playing. Like, some people, get out there and attack the game how they want to and still win without really watching film. And then others may be more reliant on it to look at themselves, or if they're not as confident as someone else might be. So I feel like it's just more personal. It's more personalized.
Yeah, so you think that people legitimately get different amounts of value out of it?
Yeah, for sure. There may not be any benefit at all to it for one person, but it could mean all the benefits to another.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what I think about that. I mean, I have a feeling that people that don't like it probably get more benefit than they think out of it when they're forced to do it. You know? Because how else are you supposed to be objective about yourself?
Or how else can you learn about yourself?
Right.
If you never, ever watch yourself on film.
Yeah. Yeah. I have kind of a theory that people that like don't find any value out of it just don't like sitting down to do it.
Probably.
It's kind of like, I'll give you another example. It's kind of like when you study, do you study with like, how do you study? Do you have like music on? Do you like put headphones in? Do you have like, a TV on? Like,
No.
well, you don't really have, you're not in a situation like that, but like.
Most of the time I'll be like in a room like this by myself. Depends on how hard it is. If it's something like a class that I struggle with, I probably won't have headphones in because that's probably going to distract me. Or whereas if I'm just, doing a discussion post or something, like I probably have headphones in. But if it's like a big exam, I'll be isolated in a room like this, no headphones, like studying for hours.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, when they go to study, like they'll go with friends, or they'll put music in, or they'll go to, like Starbucks or whatever, or someplace, coffee shop. And it's like, I think people, one, may not know what is best for them, / maybe they do, but they just really don't like to do it.
Yeah.
Because like what's probably best, like what you're talking about, is like no distractions, no other people, just like really solid focus on something.
Because I can't be in a room for some reason with other people while I study. Right. I feel like I get so like awkward basically because we're not talking, we're just in silence.
Right. Yeah.
So like when I would go with my friends to a coffee shop like over break and we would have homework, it was maybe over like Thanksgiving break. And we went to a coffee shop and I just couldn't do my work.
Yeah.
We were just sitting there drinking our coffee and then we ended up talking the whole time and I didn't get any work done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's my kind of theory about film is that like people tell themselves things about film like, yeah, it's okay, or it doesn't help me that much, or I don't like to watch my own film or whatever, but it's like,
Yeah.
They know that it's really beneficial for them if they were to really sit down and watch it,
Yeah. But like, did you ever watch like your like baseball film? Like when you would play games and stuff?
No, because we didn't really do that. I watched myself hitting sometimes.
More like practice film?
Yeah, I watched myself in like batting cages a lot.
Or like your grass volleyball matches?
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of film now myself, just...
Over the years?
Yeah, and for me, like, it's always not as good as it felt. It's always like, I felt good, or I felt like I was jumping really well, or I felt like I was serving really hard, or I felt like I was really offensively productive. And I'm like, God, I'm actually like, there's a lot of attempts that I'm making that I'm not scoring, or like, that wasn't that hard of a swing. Which also makes me think like, I feel like the film like deadens the power a little bit sometimes.
There's sometimes where I think I hit this ball so hard or I jumped so high in the moment, like you can like recollect that feeling, and then I go back and I look at it and then I feel like I didn't jump an inch off the ground.
It's one or two things. Like it's either that we just aren't as explosive as we feel, or there's something about film that like slows and softens the actual movements.
Yeah.
You know, which actually makes me, one thing that I've thought over the past year or two is that watching film has helped me a lot, but it's also like, it also disappoints me a lot. And sometimes when I play these tournaments and like I'll win a decent amount of games or I'll get through decent amount of playoffs or whatever, and I'm overall like fairly successful day results wise.
Yeah.
I'll watch film and be like, I sucked. But then I'll be like, you know, I felt good.
Yeah.
So like, I don't want the film to like
Mess with you, basically.
make me feel worse about myself when I actually was, results-wise, fairly productive. Like, because for me especially, just an undersized player, like, I'm like pretty decent at finding ways to get it done, results-wise. When I go back and watch though, I'm like, a lot of that wasn't in like ways that I wanted it to be. It's not like me passing dimes, going up and like hitting good balls, like,
or like being like going and watching and not thinking that really looks like you or like is yourself, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I just, for me, like I've started to learn about film that for myself that it's nice to see, but if I felt good about the day, it's not that I ignore it. I'm kind of like, okay, I take notes about myself. I'm like, okay, like, you know, approach needs to be deeper or whatever. But I don't like add up all the like, oh, this sucked, this sucked, this sucked, this sucked. So it's like a really hard balance because if you're feeling good when you play and you're getting good results, then film should be watched, in my opinion, through a lens of, okay, like times I didn't do good, what was the trends there? What were the patterns there? You know, if I felt like I was, a lot of times, for me, I watch film a lot, and I realize I'm not really reaching as well as I can.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, good day, felt good, was jumping high, still have more reach.
Yeah.
Like, so then I'll like.
So do you think that people may spend less time on maybe certain games or like a tournament weekend if they felt good, or it's like if you didn't feel good, do you think you would go back and watch even more?
I think that most people go back and watch the games they felt the best with.
Yeah, because I mean, me personally, I do that too. Like if there's a game that I remember that I felt like I had a lot of great swings, I got a lot of digs, or you know, was passing really well, I'll go back and watch that game.
Yeah.
But then if there was a game where, you know, probably felt like I didn't do as good, for me personally, I like feed more through that. Like I kind of want to go watch that more, but obviously you want to go watch the one that you felt the best in.
Yeah. I think people are attracted to like seeing themselves do good things. And sometimes I think when you do bad things, you kind of already know what those are.
So you just kind of, sometimes, I don't know if this is good or bad, but on a like good film day, like where I, you know, felt like I did really good in a game and there's like just some small things, I'd be like, yeah, okay, like I kind of already felt that in the game, so I feel like I don't really need to watch it here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's hard to know, like as a coach, like to go back and tell someone to watch bad things because they may already know they were doing those things, but it's kind of like we as coaches have to know that you did those things and know what those look like.
Yeah.
Like you have to be able to see yourself from the outside to be able to, I guess, just truly like get closure on the bad things you're doing.
Yeah, because then like there's some games where, you know, we'll come up at a, you know, technical timeout and I'll be talking with my partner on things that aren't going as well, and then I'll remember that and then go back in the game and then say like I was right, like we weren't doing this and this and this.
Right.
So then that's where I feel that looking at the good things is probably more beneficial when you already know, like, the things you weren't doing well. But if you don't know, then that's where I think film is better for that specific person if they didn't know what they did wrong.
For sure.
There's times where, you know, I may ask, what was I doing wrong in that game? Like, sometimes I don't know. And I'll ask myself that to my partner after the game. I'll be like, what did I do wrong? Or I'll, like, say that to a coach, like, what did I do in the game that wasn't helping me win or wasn't doing anything for me? And then I'll go back and look at film. But then there's times where I tell myself, yeah, I wasn't doing this. I already know that.
Yeah. What do you think is the best time to watch your own game film?
Like, time of day?
No, like, so, like...
Like, right after or...
Right after, right before, you know, days after, when you decompressed.
I would like to say days after, just because you have time to collect your thoughts about it, and I don't know, maybe your body's still, like, you know, in that moment right after a game, because right after a game it's like you're energized, like, you know, depending on how it went, it's like your emotions could be all over the place, or could feel really good, could feel really bad. So I don't know about watching it right after, but
when you were in juniors and you filmed your matches, did you ever, like, go watch it right after? Exactly, right? Exactly.
Like, in high school, we would have, like, a long travel day, and it was, like, a school that was, like, an hour away. And our film would already be uploaded, and I would be just, like, sitting on the bus with my phone like this, like, just head down, like,
yeah,
like, it was already dark outside, and, yeah, and I would go and watch it, like, in class.
As we're talking, I'm feeling like there's, like, a lot of different times you should watch film. It's, like, right after is maybe okay, just so you, like, you can match your feelings with what was actually happening pretty quick.
You can, like, almost...
validate your feelings, kind of, yeah. Days after is good, too, just having decompressed, watch it again. As we're talking, I'm thinking, like, you know, right before actually seems like it would be really helpful.
Yeah, to look at...
It's kind of like you watch your stuff, and then you're like, okay, shoot, yeah, I don't want to look like that. Like, keep my arm high, or do this, or do that. And it's like, it just primes you right before you play.
Yeah.
Seems like that could actually be beneficial.
I don't know, I don't think I've ever tried
No,
that.
me either, but I was just like, that idea just came to me, and I was like, that would probably help me.
Yeah.
Because a second after I watch my film, I instantly want to, like, go fix it.
Or, like, I want to get that game back, you
Right.
know? Like, when I watch it right after, or, you know, when we have a travel day and the, you know, game's already uploaded, and I'll watch it sometimes. And I'll instantly, you know, if it was a game that I, you know, missed an opportunity on, I instantly just want to go back and fix all those things. So
yeah, it kind of primes you, because when you're watching your stuff, you're like, you're either drawn to the good things or the bad things, or maybe both. And so you're wanting to do those good things and not do those bad things. So it's like this visceral, like, okay, like, I'm going to go out there and fix it right now.
Yeah. Do you think it's like a part of, like, visualization, basically, right before? Almost like, this is what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
And this is what I'm not going to do, you know?
Exactly. I think it is that. Yeah. And I think on that note, if there was a way that I could, like, I don't know how this would be possible, but if there was a way when I was coaching in the box to, like, on a side switch, pull a play that, like, just happened, like maybe cool. 2-3 points ago, and just have them watch it on the side switch. Hey, like, you see, this is what you did here on this play we were trying to run, and this is what they did, or this is what they're doing. That would be, like...
That would be awesome. Because, I mean, you think about when you come with us, like, on a side switch, and it's like, it's basically that, but without actually seeing it.
Right. Exactly. I'll tell people to run this play, and then on the side show, like, yeah, you left early, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, they can't always, like, feel that or see that or process that in the moment.
Yeah.
If they just were able to see it, you know?
Because, like, you can hear it all you want. You know, I feel like it's almost when you learn how to do something in volleyball. You know, when you were younger and they would almost show you how to do it rather than telling you how to do it.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's the same concept with that, if that were actually theoretically possible. It's like you can tell us what the other side is doing or what we're doing, but it's not until you see it and when you're going to actually, when it like registers in your mind what to do.
Yeah, it really gets into like, this is a way longer conversation, but just the idea of like visual learning kind of. I mean, like, yeah, I don't think you could. It's so interesting how you have to like approach learning from so many different ways. You know, like something I read a long time ago about coaching, which I'll ask you this, is like, if you had to tell someone, if you were teaching someone how to turn on a bicycle, like if you had to give them verbal instruction on how to do that, like what would you tell them?
That's so difficult without showing them.
So if someone's riding a bike and you're giving them verbal instructions on how to turn, like what would you say?
Oh, I don't even know. I'd say like just angle the bike to your left and brake as you go and keep pedaling, and then I don't even like
angle the bike to your left. So what do you think? Okay, so that's fine. So what do you think would happen if someone followed those directions?
They probably wouldn't turn correctly.
What would they do?
They'd just like maybe lean or something. I don't know.
Well, they wouldn't do what you just did, which is turn your hands, because you didn't tell them anything about their hands. You just said angle your bike, which to me, I hear that and I think like lean. So you would just fall over.
That would just make
a lot of people would say maybe like to turn left, it's like, you know, maybe like pull the left side of the handle and push the right a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you did that, like you would also fall because you wouldn't lean the right way.
Yeah.
So like what we're getting at is that verbal instruction alone is definitely not enough to like learn motor skills. No. Right? It's also that probably just watching is probably, I would think, better than verbal in some ways, but watching alone is not, you're not going to learn just by watching. Yeah. So, and maybe it's different for everybody, you know, I don't know. I know for me, what I feel like is helpful to me, you know, and what order is most helpful. But yeah, it's a question that's, I don't know how to approach as a coach, because some people might get a lot of benefit out of the watching. Some people might get more out of like verbal or out of doing, or, you know, you mentioned like being a kid or whatever, learning things and like seeing it modeled.
Yeah. Well, I just think about, because I go, you know, home for the summer and I'll teach, you know, little kids basically. And it's not until they see it, if they're, you know, learning how to hit a ball or their approach, we'll like, you know, show them, and it sort of directly translate to like what they actually do. And I just think about little kids learning, like they need to see it more than how you tell them, because if you tell them, they probably won't get it on the first try.
Yeah.
So I just think visual learning and watching film is maybe more beneficial than, you know, someone just telling you in practice, or a coach telling you in practice or in a game that this is something you need to fix, you know.
Yeah. I think in a perfect world, in my perfect beach facility, I've thought about this a lot.
Your high-end beach facility.
I would have
every court on a video delay, all practice, every practice.
That'd
To where
be so
like
amazing.
anytime we wanted to just like, hey, what did that feel like? Watch it right now. And just being able to watch it back anytime. Being able to just instantly be like, that was really good, watch it.
Yeah.
Or like, you left early there, watch it.
Because you feel it in practice, you know?
Sometimes you don't.
It's true. But there are times where I know that I left early or that my feet weren't to the ball or, I don't know, not reaching high enough, but being able to watch it would give me so much more clarity. And I feel like more players could get that clarity watching.
Yeah.
Watching
I
themselves.
think a little bit differently than that. I feel like the times you know are not necessarily times to worry about. It's the times when you don't know you're leaving early.
You're like you like question it basically.
Well, you're like, you weren't even aware that you left early. Or you weren't even aware that you were out of balance or that you know, whatever. Like, then it's like, you need to see it to be like, oh, I guess I did.
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't balanced, or I guess I wasn't this. Like,
Yeah.
that's how you really, like, I think maybe it's one of the reasons you have awareness is because you've watched film. And so, like, it builds an awareness of, like, watching yourself from outside of yourself when you're playing.
Yeah.
To be aware of what your body's doing.
Yeah.
Some people are good at that, some people are bad at that. I mean, as a coach, like, you can tell people, hey, like, you know, lead with your elbow or whatever, some mechanical cue.
Yeah.
Some people are, like, really good at exaggerating it for whatever. Other people, like, think they're doing it and they're just not. Like, they just don't have body awareness.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know. That's another topic you could really talk about for a long time, like body awareness. But I don't know if it's like learned or.
Well, I think, yeah, I don't know either, but I think that one of the best tools we have to potentially build some body awareness is film.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, because you can think in your head, I'm doing these things, I'm trying to do these things, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, another good example is like, well, yeah, there's just a lot of things you can do to be like, do you realize you're doing this? And they don't realize they're doing it. And then you can show them and be like, whoa.
Yeah. Or we talk about like low push a lot, right?
Right.
Especially so much debate on a cutty, for example. And it's more on the wrist away that it's so controversial because sometimes I think that I'm on top of the ball, but then, you know, you or someone else might be telling me, hey, like, you're hitting from, you know, down here. And it's like, dang, I don't even feel that, you know? So it's, I don't know, it's a weird thing too.
Yeah, no, that's where a film I think is most beneficial, is like, I can tell you something, but if you didn't feel it and you didn't see it, how do we bridge that gap? Film's kind of like the bridge there,
Yeah,
you know?
like the
video.
mediator. Yeah.
What else? Anything else we haven't covered?
I don't know. Let me see. I don't know. I think that may be it.
Yeah, there's another discussion to be had about like the idea of visual learning and what that is, what it means, if everyone's the same or different there.
I think about like studying almost again about visual learning. I had to learn myself how to study and what works for me, and being a visual learner helps, but people may not know how they learn.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much, you know, you may not know about yourself and how you learn or how you get better at things if you just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a plug for watching the film, because like you may not know how beneficial it can be to your game until you like put in a little bit of time and like watch it and you feel like this is actually really helpful, you know.
So what happens like if someone does put the time in and they don't say that it doesn't directly translate to, you know, body awareness or being able to watch yourself? Like, what happens then?
I guess just quit.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know, because I can't think of anybody that wouldn't get benefit out of watching film.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I guess it's possible, but
It's just like a theory question almost.
yeah.
Almost like, can you directly translate it, you know, or does it directly translate to you? And
I mean, I guess my answer to that is that it's hard to know, it's hard to draw a straight line from anything to body awareness.
Yeah.
Like doing, listening, watching, experimenting, learning, like whatever. It's kind of, I don't think we really know what directly builds body awareness. I think it's like a combination of things, right?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into body awareness. Like you can feel it, you can see it, someone can tell you. I feel like there's so many factors that could go into that.
Yeah, I think it's part of like a holistic approach to like essentially what's motor learning essentially, which is you got to do all the things and they're all some level of benefit, and maybe over the course of your lifetime or your career you will start to get an idea of like which things benefit you marginally more and benefit you marginally less.
Yeah.
You know?
Does that come with time though? Like as you get older, does that margin like change?
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think, because I have a similar question about awareness in general.
Yeah.
Like just awareness, are you born with it? Like, or is it taught? Is it learned? Like, you know, some people are not aware of things, of themselves, of their own physical, the space they take up in physical space. Like they're not very aware. Mm-hmm. You know, for me personally, I feel like I'm a really aware person. So I actually feel like, well, this is going to sound contradictory, but I feel like I don't need film.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I have a pretty good sense of what my body's doing. Yeah. You know, I feel like if you tell me to make adjustments to certain things internally or externally with my body, like I think I'm pretty good at it. I don't know, but I think I'm pretty good at it. I guess I think that because whenever people coach me to do things, I feel like I can do them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If someone says do this or do that, I feel like I can do it the first try or the second try. But I feel like as a coach, when I tell people to do things, there's a big spread on people's ability to do that.
Like it could take them longer.
Yeah, like some people are good at it.
Yeah.
Other people like I'll give you an example. Like I had a goofy-footed player years ago. And I was like, this is just really going to hold you back. If you really want to like go further in your game, like you probably need to
learn.
Yeah, because for her particularly, you can be goofy-footed and successful, but for her it was just closing her off way too much.
Yeah.
So I was like, you should spend the summer just not thinking about anything, but finishing right-left instead of left-right. Mm. And she came back and like said she worked on it all summer and like was still goofy-footed. Huh. And I was like, how can you not change that? I mean, how can you not? And she would get back. Yeah. And she like sometimes she would do goofy-footed and she like wouldn't be aware that she was doing goofy-footed. And I'm like,
that's so weird.
You know? But it's like that's just a more exaggerated version of what you talk about with the low pushy, with the bottom half contact with the top half. It's like you feel like it's top half, but it's not sometimes.
Yeah. Well, like there were times when we would go indoors and it was like if you did low pushy, like you're off, right? And there was so much debate because I remember someone saying, you know, if you feel it, just be honest and truthful with your team and say, yeah, that was low pushy. But some people may not even have that awareness, you know. Then like when someone tells you, hey, that was low pushy, like get off, and you'd be like, no, I didn't feel like that was low pushy. So that's an even bigger topic to talk about. But,
yeah, that's
but
maybe more where what the title can/should be. This is like awareness through film or something like that. Awareness through video.
yeah.
Because I mean, that is a really interesting. I'm interested to understand more how people's either natural or developed level of body awareness relates to the value they can get out of watching film.
That's
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And if, like, me saying that I'm aware, am I wrong? Like, I don't know.
Like,
I could be wrong.
Tricking yourself?
Yeah, am I just telling myself, oh, no, I'm aware?
Yeah.
You know, like, because that's the whole thing about awareness is, like, me thinking I'm aware doesn't necessarily mean I'm aware.
Yeah.
I could be unaware
Yeah.
of my awareness.
Or
you know?
telling yourself that you are aware, but in reality you may not be.
Yeah,
you could be.
me being like, I'm aware of what my body's doing. I don't need to watch film. I could just be making the same mistake that tons of people make.
Yeah.
And I can have no knowledge of that. So in order to check myself and any player, I should probably just watch film just to be sure.
I feel like it's just a baseline, like, just checklist for any player is to go and just watch yourself back. You may not go so in depth, but like the bare minimum basically would just be to just watch yourself.
Yeah. What's interesting is I've watched film of myself coaching, and there's a lot of things that I do that I'm unaware that I do.
Coaching?
Yeah.
Huh.
Just way I'm speaking or how long I'm speaking or...
Oh, when you in practice.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you have the thing on and you're talking.
Like when I started doing that, filming myself and miking myself up, it made me be aware of like a lot of things that I wasn't aware of. Like I talk a lot and I still talk too much, but I talk way less than I used to. Because I watched film and I was like, damn, it's just like dragging on for like 4 or 5 minutes. Like that's a lot.
Would you not see, that's the thing, like you weren't aware that you were talking for that long.
Right.
Same thing that would translate in a film standpoint. Like if you weren't aware that you weren't hitting top half, or you weren't aware that you were leaving early, or weren't aware that you were barrage jumping, I don't know. Yeah,
so even if you're someone that thinks you're aware, like I don't see any downsides to film.
Yeah.
There's no argument against it, right? So like that's pretty rare. Like there's no argument to be made against watching film.
Yeah. There's always going to be some benefit.
Yeah, even if it's confirming, like I thought I did this. Yep, I did that.
Yeah.
I am thinking correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I gotta film myself coaching more because I think it helps. Actually, it does help.
I feel like it's changed a lot since like the videos I used to watch like before I got here.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
I feel like it's less sometimes. Like when we're in between like our practices, like I don't know. Sometimes it'll be really long, like you'll just have a lot to say about some things, and then sometimes it's like, okay, straight to the point, in between like in between when we get water or something. It's like this, and this, okay, get back out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. That's a whole other thing too. I don't want to get into that. That's a lot of things. But yeah, okay. So long story short, there's zero downside to watching your video or anyone's video, really.
Anyone, yeah. Could be yourself or anyone.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Cool.